Yeah. Family, y'all. Just keep it tight, keep it tight, keep it tight. All right. Yeah. Here we go, here we go.
Saint Jerome was an interesting figure because when we think of saints, we think of people who are quiet and holy and always prayerful. That wouldn't be Saint Jerome. So, Saint Jerome is known in history. Dr. Gonzalez says he was a proud, stormy, and even bitter man. That gives hope to some of us, right? He called Basil, Ambrose, John Chrysostom, and Augustine two-legged asses. And he's still a saint of the church. Right, that's pretty strong. And those were some Basil, Ambrose, John Chrysostom. We just read about. We just heard about those. Those were some great leaders.
How many people get all that and we become saints?
Right. So how interesting that we have this model of a saint who, despite his very human words and actions, is still a saint in the church today. Jerome studied classical literature until he purportedly had a dream about the final judgment. Imagine having a dream like this. He dreamed that he was standing before the throne, the final judgment. This is when God says, heaven or the other place. Okay, he's dreaming of the final judgment. And the judge asks him, who are you? And he says, I'm a Christian. And the judge responds to him, you lie. You are a Ciceronian. Cicero was into classic literature. So, wait a minute. You lie, you're a Ciceronian, you're not a Christian. Does that mean that Jerome is going in the direction of heaven, or is more likely going in the other direction? Yeah. So when he woke up, that dream made him think a bit. You know, am I really going in the right direction as a Ciceronian? Interesting. Dr. Gonzalez points out that Jerome was obsessed with sex, whatever that means. I suspect we'd have to Google Jerome's life to find out more. Punished his body. Oh, great. Corporal punishment. You know, that flagellation and all of that we did in the Middle Ages when we thought the body was bad and evil. And he lived an austere life. Dr. Gonzalez says that he was unkempt, which I'm imagining means that he didn't do his hair and nails quite so often. And also that he lived without washing, which probably meant that he was probably a ripe individual. Yeah. Bishop Damascus of Rome suggested to him that he translate the scriptures from Hebrew to Latin, and so that put an idea in his head. Oh yeah, why don't I do that? To translate the Hebrew, that means the Old Testament, into Latin. The Hebrew scriptures. He's going to translate everything from Hebrew into Latin. His translation referred to it as the Vulgate. The Vulgate then became the standard Bible of the Western Church. How interesting that when he traveled from Rome to the Holy Land, so he visited Rome, spoke with the bishop there who suggested that he translate the scriptures. After that, he's going to do his work in the Holy Land. And when he wrote about it, he said that he went from Babylon to Jerusalem. Ooh, how interesting. Babylon, do we understand the significance of that? When we were deported from our homeland in the Holy Land, when we were deported into Babylon. And so Babylon is like sort of like this sinful place. We just have this image of this godless, sinful place. And so in the Middle Ages, Babylon would become this image of those who were not with Rome, right? If you're not part of the Roman Catholic Church, then you're part of these Babylonian, the words that they used was the whore of Babylon. Whore spelled with the W. I mean, it was just this image of how it was that it was this godless, forsaken land and experience. Wait a minute. Where's Jerome saying he came to Jerusalem from? From Babylon. He wasn't really coming from Babylon. Where is he coming from? He's coming from Rome. Ooh. Those were strong words to say that Rome and the church center there was like Babylon. So he translated the entire Old Testament, what we know as the Hebrew Scriptures, into Latin. You would think people would be grateful, right? Oh, thank you for translating the Bible because now we can read it in our language. Do any of us here read Hebrew? Any of us read Hebrew? No. So wouldn't it be nice if we translated from Hebrew into English? That would be a great gift and we could all read it. Okay. What happened though when he translated it into Latin? you can't make everyone happy. Because the other people who had already translated certain prayers and certain passages to Latin already, you know, we were used to praying using those words, and now he's coming out with a new translation. So the questions arose, the criticisms, you know, who is this guy to be tampering with our sacred texts, our favorite texts, you know? We've been praying, now that we translated the Greek into Latin, we've been praying using these Latin words in the Western Church, and now he's changing them. Another criticism, how could this translation be different or even better than the Septuagint? We remember that what the Septuagint was? Since we spoke Greek, we don't speak Hebrew. We were speaking Greek in the Empire. So we translated the Hebrew into Greek. Do you remember the story about how it was translated? According to the story, we gave 70 copies to 70 different people to translate into Greek. And what happened when they all came back? They all compared notes and they all had the same exact translation of every single word of the entire Old Testament, according to the legend that's told. So how could you have any better translation than that translation that we made from Hebrew? 70 translations, exactly the same of the whole entire Old Testament, according to the story. How could you do any better job than that? The other translation, St. Augustine, oh, that would be one of the people that he called the two-legged ass. St. Augustine, which may have merited why, this may help to explain why Jerome said some of the things that he did. Because St. Augustine looked at his translation and said, you know what? You're just translating words differently. Did St. Augustine speak Hebrew, by the way? No. So Jerome really, I mean, here a person who doesn't even speak Hebrew is criticizing his translation from Hebrew into Latin. So Augustine, for instance, said that there's the story in the book of Jonah, look it up yourselves, Jonah chapter 4, verses 6 to 7, where Jonah sits beneath this plant. We've always said that it was a gourd, Augustine said, right? When they translated it from Hebrew into Greek, what we understood was that he sat under a gourd tree. How did Jerome translate it? He sat beneath an ivy. Did he sit beneath a gourd tree? Because that's what we've always said. Or did he sit under an ivy like you've translated it? Clearly he sat beneath a gourd tree because that's what we've translated and been saying all these years. You ignorant translator, Jerome, you. Follow me? Yeah. How people could get so pithy about single words. How interesting. The justice actually makes me laugh only because Jerome mocked them, not only calling them things like two-legged asses, but also calling them gourdists, because they just held on to this notion of gourd, that Jonah know that he sat beneath a gourd tree. Or a gourd, no. He translated it under the ivy, and all these others, he ridiculed them as gourdists, as people who were fixated on this concept of a gourd. I put in parentheses here, possibly the castor bean, only because later translators, modern day translators, don't translate it gourd and don't translate it ivy. They translate it in different ways. It's like, you know, whatever that ancient Hebrew word was, different people have translated it in different ways. And so people become so fixated on that word, because what happens then, people like Augustine start blaming him for translating it one way. He starts defending it, and it doesn't make for a good relationship, which probably results in people calling one another names and treating people the way that they're treated.